Let's talk more now about sort of mental health now, right? Joining us to do that is clinical psychologist Dr. Adolph Brown. I believe, Doctor, we have you?
Yes, you have me.
Oh,
Thank
there
you.
you are. Okay. I thought for a second we were talking to ourselves. Dr. Brown, thank you so much for your time on this Monday. No doubt you've been paying attention to what's been going on.
Yeah.
What is your reaction? How do you describe what you're seeing in terms of mental health?
Well, we're seeing a reaction to trauma, to ongoing trauma that has existed for a long time. People are carrying the weight of oppression and depression and racism and discrimination around with them. And it was just a matter of time. We've been talking about riots and fire, but it takes oxygen to start a fire. So I often talk about all the things that have contributed to this. But today I'm hoping that we'll talk about the solution that I've talked about in my research for over 30 years and around the world about the empathy gap and what that is. And all it is basically is it's not the seminar, the book that brings us together. It's those conversations that we have when we're watching the news late at night and we're watching people who don't look like us. We're watching people who may not behave in ways in which we think we wouldn't behave. And what's our internal dialogue? What are we saying about them? And that will either tell us kind of where we are with regards to empathy. Because when I'm watching, I'm thinking, what would it take for me to behave in that manner? What would it take for my children? How would I feel if it were my children in this manner? So that's the start. I mean, I believe in breaking down institutional barriers and changing laws and reform. I get it. However, it starts in heart. It starts with reflection and self-correction.
What does that conversation look like, or maybe I should say sound like? I mean, you mentioned the empathy gap. So how do we have that conversation, and exactly what does it sound like?
Definitely. So if I'm watching the news and I don't see, and I see people that are doing things, maybe looting and other things, do I say immediately go to a judgment mode? Or do I go to a mode of, I wonder what the core, what's causing them to do this? What's contributing to this behavior? How would I feel if it were my children doing this behavior? That's an empathic response. A judgmental response, which would widen this empathy gap, would be, it's senseless, it's stupid, who are they? In other derogatory terms. What I think some individuals don't understand is that understanding a particular dynamic doesn't mean you condone it. It's kind of like a teen who misbehaves. If we understand the underlying psychological implications of that misbehavior, it doesn't mean we condone it. We're just trying to attempt to understand it better. And in medicine, if you treat any illness and you only treat the symptoms of that illness when you know their underlying causes, that would be malpractice.
Okay, so my next question then comes from the idea that you mentioned the trauma, right? Oppression, this is a lot. Oppression, depression, racism, discrimination. I think a lot of people watching right now, if they have a heart, they feel empathy. What do you do with that empathy? Because it's simply a feeling. What do you do with that empathy to make a difference? And I would also say this, you're saying then when the looting is happening to feel that empathy within that moment.
Yes. Yes. I'm actually saying feel it while you're watching. That those private moments are the most important moments. Who are you when nobody's watching? Those are the moments that the societal change occurs when in your home, those conversations that you're having that sometimes your children aren't even privy to, they're happening in our brains. And some of us don't realize that our brains don't help us to be correct. Our brain is designed to help us to be efficient. The brain actually keeps us from not having to think. So I often tell people in my master classes that don't believe everything you think. Challenge the things that you think, challenge the behaviors, and that empathy, once you get it, practice it. Practice it and get out and meet people who are different from yourselves. If you don't know me, you're likely to allow your brain to give you all the input that it has about people that look like me, that are from where I'm from.
Right.
Right.
Dr. Brown, we will leave it right there with practice empathy. Before we let you go, though, quickly, what's the rest of your shirt say? You have it on, so let's see it. Diversity is the mix.
Inclusion is making the mix work.
We'll leave it on that message right there. All right, Dr. Brown, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.